Yeah, oh, oh, hello. Hi, everybody. Hope you're all right and you've had a good week so far. And it's kind of officially the weekend, isn't it? Right? Would you say that,
I think it
Jenny?
is. Yes.
4 day
Easter bank holiday
weekend.
weekend.
And it's the Easter holiday, so no getting up for the school run either.
Yeah.
So yeah, welcome to the Cuppa Club. We are super excited for tonight. I'll let you introduce our fabulous guest, Jenny,
Yes.
because she is lovely. So yeah, I'll let you introduce
Yes.
her.
So we've got a lovely guest on tonight. We've got Annie Jeffrey here, who's here from a local charity based in Leamington called hArt, Hampshire Art and Recreation Therapy. And tonight we're talking all about, and she's a founder of the charity and runs a show basically, and they help a lot of people out. She'll tell us more about it, but it's a lot about art therapy and how that's beneficial to people. What sort of people might benefit from Annie's charity, what sort of things they do, a little bit maybe about how the lockdowns affect them as a charity as well. But they do fantastic work for people all around this local area, and it really is amazing. So shall we bring her in? This is welcome, Annie, everybody.
I think we should.
There
Hi,
she is.
Hi.
Hello.
I hope you can see me. I keep moving around on
I
your
know,
screen.
it's kind of a bit funny, isn't it? Welcome, Annie, to Cuppa
Thank
Club.
you very much. And
Thank
Have
you
you
for
got
joining
Cuppa?
us. Thank you so
it's
much. Now, we were chatting before, weren't we, Annie? So we met, hold on, last year? No,
year
last
before.
year. It was
Yeah,
the
year before.
Wow. So we met at a networking event at the Tooting Glen, and we were sat at the same table, weren't we? And then we got chatting, and then obviously we said we knew Martin, which is Jenny's husband, and yeah, it was lovely. But yeah, and I see you again. So there you go.
Yeah, it's a bit of a long gap, but it has been a strange year, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's really strange, really strange. So, but yeah, thank you for coming on to talk to us. We really appreciate it. And I know Jenny knows a lot about your charity, but I would love to hear more, and I'm sure people listening would love to know, what you do and how you help people, because it sounds incredible, absolutely incredible. So, yeah.
Well, I decided that I wanted to set this up in 2014. So we're coming up to our 7th birthday this year, which is quite exciting. And we had, it was really because I understand myself from what's happened in my life, how much being creative really matters to people. And I think that's something that's been really highlighted in the last year in particular also. But I met somebody who was an art psychotherapist, which is a profession that is possibly not quite so well known. And she was desperately keen to get more work in the New Forest area. And there's a big sort of triangular space in the New Forest between Bournemouth, Southampton and Winchester, where it's quite difficult for people to access the sort of services that they might hope to get hold of in places like Bournemouth and Southampton. And so our whole idea was to take art therapy to people. So we have a small office space, but it is about going out to people rather than bringing them to us. And it's trying to address mental health issues in people of all ages and abilities, and also to break down some of the loneliness and isolation, which again, people have become more aware of that in the last year, but it existed before. And there's a lot of people in the forest where transport's very difficult, who, if they haven't got access to a car, really can't go and find the kind of activities and support that they might otherwise want. So, we work with people of all ages and all abilities. So we've worked with children as young as 5. We've worked with college students, special educational needs. We've worked with older people, but largely we work with adults with sort of mental health issues, which can relate to all kinds of things like trauma that they've gone through, or life-changing events, life-changing illnesses, post-stroke, that kind of thing, where people have massive changes in their lives, and then for some reason or other finding a way of expressing that, so what it's done to them is really difficult in terms of voicing it, so they use art. And if you're working with an art psychotherapist, they can really help you and ask the questions that are really relevant to try and find ways of dealing and coping with those emotions, but using the creative process. And although we call ourselves an art therapy charity, there's all kinds of arts, and it is the arts. There's drama, there's creative writing, there's music therapy. We work very closely with CODA, the Music Trust at New Milton. In fact, we've just taken an office there, so we're actually living with them now. Hoping to
so they didn't want to see you a lot before. They're definitely going to see a lot of you now.
Exactly. I mean, we moved in just before Christmas, and we haven't been able to be in the office since because of lockdown. But we're looking forward to going back very soon. And about developing partnership working, because I think certainly going forward, partnerships and working more closely and looking at funding bits together is really going to be important.
Yeah.
So we work indoors and outdoors. We've done some very successful outdoor working with college students from Brockenhurst and Totton in particular, as well as adults. And getting people outdoors, as we know, again, in the last year, that has been a real lifesaver for lots and lots of people. So we're very keen to be involved in 2 or 3 new projects that are all about using the outdoor spaces, particularly the New Forest, because we're so lucky to live here, where we've got both the coastline and the forest, heathland and forest and enclosures, to actually get out there and enjoy fresh air and exercise. And that's the thing that's got me through all of this, because it's almost spiritual when you go outdoors. If you walk through beech woods, it's almost like being in a cathedral. And I'm not a particularly religious person, but I do understand that sense of feeling something very important and big all around you, and you just lose yourself in it, and it's magic. It really is.
Absolutely.
So that's roughly what we do.
Wow. Well, it sounds incredible. Absolutely incredible. I mean, so if someone was to come to you and say, would you then kind of speak to them about their interests and kind of guide them in a direction of what could help them? Is that something?
I mean, bear in mind that I'm not actually a therapist, but people can self-refer, so they can contact us themselves and say, look, I really think art therapy would be beneficial. And we've got 2 fairly open studio type groups that we've been running for a while, although we've had to transfer them online, and that's been an interesting exercise. But we've also got several projects coming up which are funded now, and which are basically something called Arts on Prescription, which is being trialled in quite a lot of parts of the country, particularly in the West Country, where people have actually been referred onto an arts programme. It sounds brilliant, Arts on Prescription, so it's all paid for. No, we have to do the fundraising for it. So we work very closely with GP surgeries and social prescribers, and they can signpost people to our courses. And then hopefully we can help those people, and they will do perhaps a 12-week course with us, and then go on to the more open studio, so that they've got continuity beyond the 12 weeks, and hopefully find their own peer support groups as well. We've had some of our groups have had their own little walking groups start up, just because people have got together and done it of their own volition, or a book club, that kind of thing. And that is just brilliant, because peer support is one of the most amazingly valuable tools that we can find for people. So, hopefully the more that happens, the better.
Absolutely. I mean, this past year, like we've mentioned, has been hard on a lot of people, hasn't it? And, it's nice to know that there's support there. And it's just getting people talking as well. And obviously with you, Jenny, obviously like exercise and just getting motivated and getting out. And like you said, Annie, we live in such a lovely place because, we've got the beaches, we've got the New Forest. So it's just telling those people and letting them know that there's help and support there, and they're not on their own. Because obviously lockdown has been a bit lonely, for people. And it's been hard, hasn't it? So it's nice to know that you guys are there and you can help. Yeah.
I think also there's not going to be an instant bounce back on all of this. People's confidence is going to take a little while to come back, and some of the people that are feeling very vulnerable, or who've been shielding, they're going to be the ones that we need to support more than all the rest in some ways. So trying to be as flexible as possible and offering continual mixtures of face-to-face working, which is always ideal, because being in a group of people in a room is the thing that we're particularly good at. But being able to allow people to join us if they feel more comfortable doing it online is something that we're certainly working on. Has to be said that the internet is not always available in the village halls and church halls that we go to, so we've got to try and find locations that have got that facility as well.
Don't you always find, though, when you really need that internet to work and you're like, come on, please, and then you're like, no, It's always the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. Or when you
Well,
really need to take a call and your signal's going, so you're literally like this at your window or by your front door. It's it's definitely a challenge, isn't it, at times with the internet?
Yeah, but haven't we all learnt an awful lot in the last year, though?
We really have.
I mean, this kind of thing, we wouldn't have been doing it. So it's great.
Especially you, Jenny. I mean, you've taken your whole business online. You've got.
I know, it's phenomenal, really. Yeah, phenomenal. And I've actually quite enjoyed learning new ways, and you're learning how to be a bit more effective, maybe more efficient. And I think this has been so good doing this Cuppa Club as well, hasn't it? To raise awareness of so many different things. And I think, especially with you, Annie, raising awareness of things like art therapy, and people didn't know that was a thing. And maybe some people might be watching today and think this evening and thinking, actually, it's not that sort of thing might really appeal to me. And it goes hand in hand with the exercise and walking outside or cycling or whatever it is you like doing. Alternative ways of doing things, and this is a prime example of using the internet of different ways of doing things, but raising awareness for how you can maybe get some help or some therapy or whatever it is that you need in different ways or forms. And maybe it's great to raise awareness, I think, isn't it, of different ways of achieving things, and that people might be able to help as well.
Yeah, I think from our point of view, it's about people understanding that art therapy, which is something that people use as a term that covers all kinds of things, like colouring books are referred to as art therapy. Yes, of course they are, because they take you away from everything else and you've got to focus on that. But there is more to that term, art therapy. And if you're talking about art psychotherapy, that's quite a broad capacity to help people, and the therapists that we work with are very highly qualified and very experienced people who can cope with some very deep and quite difficult issues for people. And it's everything is relative, because we do the health and well-being aspect, which is not so much about the deep psychotherapy, but it's about exactly what you've been saying, the social connections and getting people together around a shared interest. And for some people that is sculpture or pottery or whatever. I mean, you've put me through my paces this evening, Jenny, with an ongoing session. I'm still aching, but it's we all get something out of all of these things that we do. And we're looking for a few more volunteers now. We're looking for we are looking for people to become trustees, because that's really important to keep a charity going and make it sustainable. That kind of thing. So anybody who wants to get in touch with us, that should have a look for our website, which is www.hart.works, and you can contact us and sign up for a newsletter and all that sort of thing. And we just love contact and hearing from people, because it's a bit like Grace and Perry's Art Club, that's had a massive following, and it brings people together around something that's just a shared interest. And it doesn't matter how good you are. Art therapy is not about judging you. It's not about trying to turn you into a great artist. It's about giving you tools and ideas to become somebody who can really express yourself. I mean, I'm quite happy to say that I got into art therapy without realizing it, because I went through a really bad phase of depression at the age of around 50, when I was getting divorced and all sorts of things were going wrong in my life. And I had learnt to sculpt at the tender age of 40 by going out and whacking a lump of stone with a mallet and a chisel. And I have to say, that's one of the most therapeutic things you can imagine doing. And of course, I don't get time to do it now, because I'm so busy running a charity for art therapy. So I do a bit of painting when I can. And it's just that creative thing. So my creativity, if you like, kind of gone into creating the charity, finding ways to make it sustainable, looking at how we get funding coming in and all of that sort of thing. So it's just using your creative brain in a slightly different way. But yeah, the sculpture thing was, it really did get me through some rough stuff. And it's one of those things that made me understand exactly what the power of this really is. So yeah.
Was that the light bulb moment, Annie? Was that the light bulb moment that you wanted then to start your business? This charity. Was it this is helping me? So.
No, I started sculpting when I was in France, would you believe it? I was lucky enough to live over in France for 9 years. And there was somebody who lived just up the road from me. And in French terms, it was just up the road, because he was literally 10 minutes away. And sometimes you can travel 2 hours to go out to dinner in the wilds of southwest France, which is where we were for nearly 10 years. And this chap was, he was marvellous. He was half English, half Chinese, with a very fiery Irish wife. It was extremely volatile relationship. But he was a very talented sculptor who trained at Goldsmiths College, and he had a business in London making, in the days when you still made molds and models for film and television work. And if anybody knows the old Tuctonia village down at Christchurch, he did most of the model making for all of that years and years ago.
Wow.
So he had retired to the southwest of France and was starting to run courses and give lessons. So I went along and I did a first week with him of modeling a head in clay from a person who was sitting there, allowing us to use her as a model. And we cast it in plaster, and I got completely hooked, and I went back and did a week of stone carving with him. And then whenever he had any new work to do, because he did get commissions, he would say, come along and learn how to do this. So I had almost a 5-year one-to-one apprenticeship with him, although it wasn't full-time by any means. And I set myself up in an outbuilding and just played with clay and stone and all that sort of thing. And then when I came back to this country, which was in 2000, I met up with a friend of mine who is a very well-established sculptor, and she taught me how to weld, which is a very girly thing to do.
Wow!
So I could make all these metals, sort of armatures and frames for freestanding sculptures. And I carried on stone carving as well. And I won a couple of prizes, and it kind of went on. And then I rented space for myself. And if anybody knows the mill at Gordleton, the large lady in the car park as you go in is my large sculpture I did, and she's 5 tons of Portland stone, and I wrecked my hands, and they're arthritic now, carving her over a period of about 2 years. So it was definitely I went through the process of becoming creative, and then thought, I need to start this charity because I know how important it is for using your creative brain to channel your emotions, to focus it. And that's where it all came from, really.
Wow,
so,
that sounds
quite
incredible.
a journey.
Yes.
And what I love about the art of therapy is it's very similar to exercise, isn't it? And that's a really lovely way of kind of I call it active rest. So, and it's the same principle as exercise. You can you rest your mind. Your body can be doing something, whether that's sculpting or painting or exercising. But your body can be doing something. Your brain can go into what's called default backup mode, and it can be doing all its kind of sorting and filing and all that kind of back end office work your brain does, and it gives that chance to do that. And you can almost kind of, your brain then gets to a stage where you can sort out problems, or you have those light bulb moments, think, oh yeah, that's what's going to work out. You have that chance to do that, and it's so beneficial. I think creative people, I mean, I would say I was a creative person. I don't do any art at all, but I still consider myself a big creative person. So I do that through exercise, I do a class or training people or whatever. But people who are creative, and that is their kind of life, need that separation even more, I think, than perhaps others. And it gives that chance to kind of do something else that's kind of creative but different to what you normally do.
Yeah.
And then your brain can kind of relax a bit as well, and you can kind of
and I think there's also quite a lot of neuroscience around, isn't there, about what happens between the right and left hand side of the brain, the creative brain and the logic brain, and that you've got to have really good pathways between the two in order to have balance. And I think it's one of the things that worries me a bit, and other people I know that I talk to about it, is the lack of the arts in school now, that the reduction in the teaching of music and all these other things. That it actually is about joining up the creative brain and the logic side of the brain. So if you're not using your creative brain, which actually helps you to solve problems, you're not finding other ways of dealing with some things that life throws at you. And it's really important that we have that balance. And I think that's something that perhaps people need to appreciate a little bit more. And when I say people, I think the people who do it do appreciate it. It's the powers that be who have the budgets and everything else who have actually got to look at it in a bigger way, because all these things should fit together. And it's all very well saying, oh, sciences are more important, and it's people, if they want to do the arts, can go off and do it themselves. Well, actually they can't. They've really got to be supported into doing it. So if we do anything that helps people to actually understand that they've got that capacity, that they can be creative, they can have fun with it, maybe it just takes away the seriousness of life as well, which, you know,
Yeah.
one of the thoughts I had about setting up the charity was it should be sort of play school for grown-ups, because we've actually stopped playing, and that is a really important part of our lives.
Yeah.
So,
and also you haven't got to consider yourself as an artist, or you haven't got to be good at it, have you? You can just give stuff a try, you can give it a go, and you whatever
Some
you
people
want
don't
to do,
think they're good at things, and
yeah,
then you start doing it and think, actually, I'm quite good. And
yeah,
then when you've got other people surrounding you going, you're really good, and you're like,
mm,
actually, I can do this. So
mm,
sometimes it's that, you know, it's that mindset that people have and think, oh, I can't do this, I can't do it, no, I'm rubbish at it. And it, you know, that's not always the case, you know. People are good in different ways. So like you said, it's just finding something, isn't it? So
and also just finding the pleasure in doing it. It's the process that's actually more important than the outcome in the end. And although it's lovely if people say, oh, I really like that, what should matter is how much you have got out of doing it, and how much the process has really given you time to switch off from everything else, and just to, you know, give your own thoughts their own way of coming out of what's going on in your head and just expressing it. It's wonderful what some people can do, and then they look at it themselves and say, I didn't know I could do that. It's a confidence builder as well, because you know, lots of people get told, oh, you can't do that, and that doesn't look like that. And you know, if you're told that as a small child, you might veer away from doing creative work. And again, I remember seeing one of Grayson Perry's people that sent in some stuff during the first of his series of programs, where she said, I haven't actually picked up a pencil and drawn or painted anything since primary school because I was told I was no good. And now she's doing it, and she's an adult, and she's loving it, and she is good, and you know, it's giving her something unique.
Yeah.
So, it's
it
really
just proves,
important.
doesn't it? When you're a child, you need lots of praise, and it's the same with adults as well. Just because we're grown up doesn't mean that we can't praise one another, because it does go a long way, you know, more than what people think. But yeah, Annie, I was going to ask you, what are you? Do you have lots of events kind of planned when you're able to do it? Is that something that you guys do? How do you go about? I mean, is that something you do with events?
We have done in the past, and when we were starting out, we went to lots of local sort of fairs and fetes and events where we had a stand there and people could come and talk to us. But as we've got bigger and busier, we've focused more and more on doing the actual work. And of course, in this last year, our team has had to shrink right down. There's only 4 of us, and there's only me that's really full-time, and everybody else is part-time. So, and our therapists we contract with, so we don't actually employ anybody as a full-time therapist. We work with 3 or 4 different therapists and just contract with them for each project. So running events as well is it's an extra thing that we really don't have the manpower to do, but we're very happy to talk to people and to do things like this, which is a great way of getting our name out there a bit more. And yes, at some point we're hoping that we'll get back to a level where we've perhaps got somebody who can take that on as a fundraising little mini committee or something like that. But we have done a few things in the past where we've been very fortunate to partner up with people. Like we did an Italian evening with Naomi House, which was amazing a couple of years ago, and the whole evening raised £15,000 because there was an auction as well, and we had a 50-50 split on that, and that's kept us going with our adults group at Fordingbridge for, well, the whole of the last couple of years really, because you know our funding is largely spent on the professional fees of the therapists. So things like that are amazing. But a lot of what we do is grant funding applications with trusts and statutory bodies, and you know, we've had money from Comic Relief, we've had money from Children in Need, the Lottery, Hampshire County Council, National Park. We've got a couple of grants from specific charities that deal with specific areas geographically and that kind of thing. But that fundraising is going on pretty much all the time, with one person doing, you know, at least 1 full day a week on that, and me chucking my 2 pence in when I can. So yes, we're not in the situation of lots of charities. I mean, I'm CEO and at the moment acting CEO and chair of trustees. I don't take a salary. because I just feel this is something I have to do. So, we're not in a position to pay lots of money to lots of people to do all of these things, but working in partnership with other groups is always very helpful, and that supports what we're trying to do as well.
I think you're amazing, Annie. I think you're so lovely, and I think what you do is absolutely incredible, because I don't think you realise how many people you have helped and you are going to help in the future. Because I think that's amazing. I think you're amazing.
Thank you.
And
good
yeah,
to know.
I mean, how do people? So can we pop your website in the comments? Are you able to do that, Jenny? You're on a laptop.
On it, www.
hArt.works.
Amazing. And then obviously people can then click on your website and have a look at what you do.
Well, Jenny's Martin has just been updating the whole website, so hopefully it's as fresh as a daisy at the moment, with all new information.
He's amazing, isn't he?
Yeah, and you have one cognitive come out, which I'll flash up, and it's I was reading today, cognitive thinking, such as art therapy, is a brilliant method of coping with comfort eating.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
taking your mind off of,
distracts you from all the things that are going on in your head.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think it does, and it's I mean, if you're doing something you enjoy as well. During this lockdown, I've walked my dog more than I ever have done, to the point where she looks at me now. I've got a chocolate Labrador, Annie, and she just looks at me now, and I'm like, "Come on, Coco." And she's like, "I'm not going for another walk again." Like, sometimes she potentially doesn't even hear me. Sometimes she'll and I'm like, "Come on, Coco," and she doesn't even move. And then her eyes just look up at me, and then look back down. And I'm like, "No, come on, because I want to listen to my podcast." So so that's something that's kind of got me through this lockdown. And I especially think this third lockdown has been the hardest. I think the weather hasn't helped. But I think just getting out for a walk, be listening to audiobooks or podcasts whilst walking, and that's really helped me. But it's just finding that thing, isn't it, that you really enjoy, and that keeps you going. But doesn't it?
Well, I'm not showing off here, but I have 3 dogs. And,
you make me jealous now.
I inherited 2 from a friend of mine a couple of years ago, and I had a spaniel as well. So I've got 3, and I've got one that's actually going backwards and forwards to the vets at the moment because she's torn a bicep muscle. Who knew that dogs have bicep muscles? But she has. So she's sort of limping alongside me with my crunchy knee. And but the dog walking has been the thing that has got me through this as well, because it's my time out. When I get outdoors in nature, that's it. I'm completely lost, and I deliberately try not to take the phone, or if I take the phone, it's switched on silent just so it's there in an emergency. And I just listen to birdsong and listen to the peace and quiet. And certainly in the first lockdown, for the first few days, it was eerily quiet. There was no traffic. There was nothing. And even now, there's not so much airplane noise and things like that. So it is my time for me, and I find it incredibly therapeutic. And then I come back and I think, oh, okay, that little thought pinged through my mind as I was walking. And then you kind of hook them down like little clouds and say, right, I'm going to work with this bit now. It's really good.
Yeah. We've got another comment from...
Another vote for the...
sorry, I'll let you do it, Jenny. I think we did it.
There we go. Walking's got me through all lockdowns. Yeah, walking is amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
And taking photos, Sarah. Sarah takes the most beautiful pictures on our walks. Yeah, so lovely. Really nice.
Yeah, well, that's art therapy, isn't it? Photographic work. Somebody said to me, "Well, I'm not arty at all," and I said, "Well, do you read books? Do you take photographs? Do you actually make cakes? That's creative." And people don't understand that creative work is exactly the sort of thing that we're talking about. It doesn't have to be painting and sculpture and all the other things. It's really important that people appreciate what their own skills can contribute to creativity.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, thank you, Annie, for doing it. That was really, really interesting. I think people find it really, really helpful. And it's great, again, open minds, isn't it? And bring people's attention to different ways of doing things. And that people might be thinking, actually, you're right, art is my thing. I would love to do more art. I used to love art when I was younger, or I really enjoyed doing pottery or photography, like I say, baking, all sorts of things. And hopefully we can inspire people to sort of do a bit more of that. But maybe if anyone wants to get in touch with you, maybe if any fundraising they'd like to do, or lots of people like to do lots of events, don't they? Of always kind of, I think you mentioned earlier, someone's jumping out. What's someone doing for you?
Yeah, somebody's got in touch today to say that they'd like to do a skydive for us.
A skydive?
I'm so excited. Nobody's offered to do that before.
Oh my goodness.
I think that's absolutely amazing. So I've got to get back in touch with them. I haven't even replied to the email because it came through this afternoon.
Wow.
But yeah, my brother-in-law actually cycled from Rome to home for us, and home is in Sway. It's not just outside Rome. 1,400 miles in 14 days, which was phenomenal.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
But that was a few years ago now. I'm not sure he'd be so keen to volunteer.
Impressive.
But jumping out of an aeroplane for us is amazing.
Annie, I'd love to. I'm gonna get in touch with you. I'd love to help you in some way. I'm not saying skydive or.
Okay, no, that's fine.
I'm just gonna put that out there now. There won't be any skydiving involved whatsoever.
It's all right.
But,
no.
But yeah, no, I'd love to help you in some way.
Great
So
stuff.
I will.
Thank you,
I'll
Kirsty.
message you over the weekend. And
that's lovely. Thank you very much.
Definitely.
Thanks.
Or if anyone would like to volunteer as well, and your volunteers are all gratefully received as well.
Yeah, definitely.
If anyone wants to help contribute in any way, shape, or form, or even by just sharing this chat, if anyone wants to share it on their own pages and that kind of thing, to help create more awareness for Annie's amazing charity, hArt, Hampshire Art and Recreational Therapy. Thank you, Annie, for coming on tonight. Really interesting, really great.
Thank you for letting me chat. Thank you.
A little chat show.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, well, we haven't even discussed if we're back next week, actually, Jenny, have we? What is it? It's Easter holidays, isn't it? So we're having
Easter holidays. Are we going to be back after Easter holidays? Should we come back after these holidays?
Easter holidays. Yeah, I think
we're going to have. Should we go for season 3 after these holidays?
I think so. I think
season 3 will be launched.
Keep this going now. I think we've
got
to keep it going.
Season 3 will be launched after these holidays.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for joining in tonight. Thank you for your comments and questions and things and contributions, and please get in touch with Annie as well.
Yeah, thanks again, Annie.
Thanks everyone.
Have a lovely Easter break.
Yes, happy Easter.
Happy Easter.